Welcome to Event Experience by Bizzabo, the podcast where we bring the best and brightest event experience leaders together to share stories, tips, and lessons learned from creating some of the world's biggest events. I'm Rachel Moore, your podcast host. There's an electricity that runs through every event, and every event planner wants to keep that current going. In today's conversation with Michael Barclay II, Executive Vice President of Experiential at Essence Ventures, you'll learn how to sustain the electricity of engagement at every turn of your event. Michael also shares his best advice for world building, the importance of knowing your audience, and the value of leveraging content to maintain excitement through your event experience. All right. Our guest for this episode tracks his origins in the industry back to 2006 when he founded Left Lane Marketing. And from there, his career journey has progressed through leadership roles in strategy and experiential with United Entertainment Group, Common Ground MGS, as well as business leadership at Leo Burnett. Today, he is the Executive Vice President of Experiential at Essence Ventures. I am thrilled to welcome Michael Barclay II to the podcast. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining me over microphones.
No problem. Thank you, Rachel. That was a great introduction. You flew right through. I forget some of the things that I've done. It's been such a long time. No, amazing intro. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and thank you for the compliments on the intro, but I barely scratched the surface. I would love to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit more to our listeners. So tell us about Essence Ventures, what that world is like there, what's your kind of day-to-day, what is going on?
Yeah, it's I wish the day-to-day was something I could track out on the day-to-day because it's different, of course. But I am, as you mentioned, the Executive Vice President of Experiential at Essence Ventures. Essence Ventures is a media holding company, which includes Essence Communications, which is our most well-known brand within the group. That is Essence, the magazine, Essence.com, as well as Essence Festival of Culture, which is our largest event that we do. It's the largest festival by per day attendance, averaging about 170,000 people per day. Doing New Orleans, we just celebrated our 30th birthday of Essence Festival this past July 4th weekend. But also we have Afro, which is also a experiential-led media property. Then we have Girls United, which is our Gen Z kind of audience version of Essence, our younger audience, as well as Naturally Charlie and Essence Studios. Essence Studios is our long-form content platform, basically what we call our version of Netflix. And what my role is, I manage and oversee, strategize, and plan all of the experiences that come out of each one of those brands. So, as I mentioned, we have Essence Fest, but then we also, on the Essence side, we have Black Women in Hollywood, which is our Oscar tandem event, which we have every Thursday before the Oscars that honors Black women that are leading the industry, both in front of and behind the camera. Black Women in Hollywood is 2025 will be its 18th year of activating that experience. It's an amazing star-studded event that, again, has a long-standing tradition now in 18 years. But also we have a few other franchises within the Essence space, Black Women in Sports. We have on the GU side, Girls United Summit, which will be taking place actually this weekend in Atlanta, which is like a mini Essence Fest. And again, targeted at our Gen Z and Gen Zennials. And then through Essence Studios, we have a film festival that we run every year that culminates Essence Festival of Culture. And so we do, about 10 to 15 events a year with, Essence Festival. Really, we count that as one, but that's probably 20 events in and of itself. A lot of communicating and planning, a lot of cross-functional work with the team. I have an amazing team that we would not be able to do anything if it weren't for the team that supports all the experiences that we produce throughout the year. But yeah, that's what I do on the day-to-day.
Well, that's plenty. You're obviously not bored, but wow, what a scope of experience that you're putting out there for so many attendees and at such a scale. Let us segue into some get to know you questions now, Michael, because I'll ask you some questions that we always ask our guests.
The juicy stuff.
That's so juicy. It's so well, and I love it too, because I wonder if people like listen to and think, ooh, I need a good recommendation for this or that or the other, and they get it from our guests. So first up, what are your go-to on-the-ground event day shoes?
So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask this question because I'm a bit of a sneakerhead and all of my outfits start from the ground up. So I refuse to compromise style for comfort, even on an event site. So the key for me actually is inserts. I use insoles and inserts on every pair of shoes that I wear. So I use Happy Feet. That's an endorsement. They don't pay me, but I love them. And I put them in all of my shoes. And I love a good pair of Jordan 1s. I'm a big, Jordan head, or maybe, throw some New Balance or something if I also go in a classic look. But yeah, whatever the fit calls for the day is what the sneakers will be. And the sneakers will be equipped with Happy Feet insoles so I can walk around all day long and create those energy experiences.
I think that makes all the sense, and that's excellent recommendation. Thank you. What are you listening to, watching, or reading these days that you can't put down?
Well, I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and specifically, I love reading Afro and African futurism. And so right now, I'm really wrapped up in Children of Blood and Bone series by Tomi Adeyemi. And, I'm currently in the first book. I have all 3 books. I just bought them all. I have all 3 of them. I'm almost done with the first one, and I can't wait to see how this whole thing turns out. But it's a great saga. It's an amazing story. So, yeah, I can't put it down. Make sure I get my pages in before the day starts every day, before things get a little crazy.
I'm a little jealous. Anytime someone says they're kicking off a book series and they're still in the first book and they know they've got multiple books, that's the best place to be, because you've got a ways until you run out and have that little, it's over. I don't have this anymore. It's always so sad, but I'm glad you're on the front end of it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I do it. I do it the same way I do shows where, everybody's watching them every week that they premiere. I'm like, no. I need a backfill to fill up on these shows, because if I watch one episode, I'm going to want another one and another one. So the books have been out for a while now, but I waited until I had all 3 of them. So now I'm starting so that I can just get through it all in one. So
yeah. Gotcha. No, that's great. I'm excited. Yeah, that one. Thank you for the book recommendation, because I, might hit that up too. That sounds really cool. I love that kind of the futuristic books as well. Is there a particular social post or a piece of media or even a hot take about events that you found interesting lately?
So I've been fascinated by funflation this year and coming into this year from last year, and it's been very fascinating to watch this year. I'm really interested in what actually is included in funflation. I'm not sure if you had a discussion on the podcast about it, but I've actually done a couple talks and realized a lot of people in our industry talk about it as well. But what experiences are included in that and what are excluded, and how is just generally affecting our business, because there's a lot of implications that are coming from with funflation. And so I'm really just keeping my eye on it to see, where the bubble is. Those things are kind of getting crazy. The ticket prices on certain things, arenas, other people aren't selling. It's like, that's the thing. I'm definitely keeping my eye on funflation to see how it plays out.
No kidding. Yeah, I know I see at least once a week where it's artists canceling their concert tours because they're underselling, I don't get to a lot of concerts, but I do know, I just hear people talk about the astronomical prices on things. And so, yeah, there is a limit to what people can afford. So I think that's super interesting too. Yeah, to keep your eye on that. I'm so thankful we grabbed some time with you, because it sounds like you've got a lot going on. And this segues nicely too. A big reason we're talking to you today is because of Experiential. And, in the events industry, it's really easy to love the sound of our own voices declaring that events, the experiential activity of getting people together in one place at one time to interact, is the very best way a brand can spend their money and energy to achieve business goals. And that, that sounds all nice in a nice little neat package of yes, this is why we do it. But I really would love to hear from you all the reasons why you feel, and obviously through all the scope of the things you are just nonstop creating experiences. Why is experiential so important in your view?
Of course, I'm biased as someone who is a diehard experiential guy. I've been working in experiential even before it was experiential, when it was non-traditional marketing, when it was guerrilla marketing, it was event-based marketing. And now we've had this nice experiential kind of wrapper for everything. But yes, I'm biased. I believe that experiential, especially from a marketing tool, is unique to any other tool in any tool bag that you have available, as far as the opportunity to create that, what I like to call the energy exchange in real time. And that is something that, again, commercials, advertising, which I've worked in advertising. I've done commercials. I've done social media marketing, all of the things, but experiential is the one that can create that exchange between the brand and consumer and further. And that engagement is also amplified by consumer being able to experience it with other consumers. So I'm really big on that. The energy exchange that experiential creates is unlike any other. And also, one of the reasons that I love experiential is you can get real-time feedback. So again, we have a lot of different feedback loops now in marketing, especially with technology. But when it comes to on-site, if you're sampling a product, if you have somebody testing a product, if you're trying our brand messaging, you get that input immediately. You don't have to run it through any analysis. Like quite literally, you get it, and you can do it at scale when you're doing experiential activations. And the thing I also like about, in addition to being able to have that immediate feedback, you also get to introduce your brand, your product, your brand messaging in a controlled environment. And so you have the opportunity to make sure that they're experiencing it the way you intended them to experience it. And I often talk about, as a kid growing up and you saw the commercials on television, G.I. Joe was running through the jungle and he's jumping over the lake and the river and he's swinging from vines and just so cool, and you have all the accessories and vehicles and things that go along with it. And then you buy G.I. Joe and you're running G.I. Joe across your kitchen floor, your dining room floor. You don't have you have to use your imagination for all those other things. In experiential, we create the jungle, we create the river, we create the experience so that when you're engaging with the brand of the product, you really do experience it the way that we intended you to experience it.
That's such a great point. And I know any of our event planners listening, that's probably a big thrill they have, right? Where you're able to craft that almost that adventure for someone to say, and obviously everyone's unique, every attendee is unique, and they're going to come into it with their own preconceptions or their own background that'll make them experience it a little bit differently than everyone around them. But you do have control over saying, but I am immersing you in this environment. And so I can kind of I get to decide where you go next and what happens next. And like you said, it's what the cool part about what you just said too is obviously people can use their own imagination, but man, experiential, crafters and professionals have to have such imagination to put that into use and create that environment and really just try to immerse people in that and give them something fantastical or worth talking about, right? Being like, I can't believe I'm here. It's just really hats off to people like yourself who, and all of our listeners who can do something like that.
Yeah, I call it world building. We talk about storytelling, it's 3D storytelling, it's world building, it's all those things because we are creating the platform. And to your point, it's even better when the imagination of the consumer is added to the story that you're telling. So then you go from world building and storytelling to what we call saga building. So now you're building different layers on top of layers of what you're actually building.
I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more event professionals, experiential professionals change their title to I'm a world builder, because you really are. I mean, it's been great to talk to so many people who do similar to what you do and work in this profession where you can just see that they revel in the fact that they get to craft this for people, that they are constructing something that's completely unique. And of course, all with strategy behind it, which I know you have a lot of experience in too. And I love that you talk about the energy exchange. I think that we all, take for granted, sometimes realize that, yeah, we're putting people together, and there's obviously that something that happens when you get more than one person in a gathering and you just kind of watch that, adrenaline build, that, just the chatter, it's the communication, it's interactions. Hugely too. I mean, you've got that with virtual events just as much as you do with in person. And there are probably any number of ways that event planners can create that energy. What's your best guidance for effectively cranking the energy among attendees?
But you mentioned strategy. And I think, anytime you're creating an experience, it's really important to know who you're creating an experience for. You have to know who that person is. Again, when we're planning, I always remind folks, and I use myself as the example, look, we're not planning my birthday party because I can tell you exactly what I want for my party, but I need 170,000 people to be interested in coming to what we're building. So we need to know what it is that 170,000 people want. So you really have to start with that. You have to start with the community that you're trying to serve, that you want to be excited about your experience. You really need to get to know them. If you're planning something and you're not a part of that community, or you don't have anybody in your team that's part of the community, it is important that you consult with, research, and really listen to members of that community. Because the energy exchange is built when you create a platform that identifies and enhances the culture, the community, and the very nuanced pieces of those both cultures and communities. And that's when you set it. And if you set all of that in action, the energy will happen. The energy will come, the exchange will come, your brand will make sense to the attendees. The attendees will be excited amongst each other and the community amongst each other. And it really does. It starts with, you have to know who it is you're signing for.
Thank you for saying that. How often do everybody listening to this can relate where we've been or set to task to like, let's design this, let's build this world. And there will be people in the room who are like, well, I want this because I like this. And we always have to remind them, say, okay, well, are you the target person? Are you the buyer? Are you the persona? And if they're not, then you have to be like, well, that's a great idea, except let's go look at what the it's so important. And it can be really easy for us to get myopic, right? We're like, well, that's what I like. I love your phrase. We're not planning my birthday party, right? Yeah, it's super important. Thank you for pointing that out. And just this really resonates. I'm sure all of us are like, yep. And let's put that on repeat for everybody who has to be part of that strategy and keep the goals in mind. We'll be right back with more Event Experience after the break. Event enthusiasts, are you hungry for the latest event trends and insights? Pop open your laptop, pull up your favorite browser, and head to the Bizzabo blog. That's bizzabo.com/blog for fresh perspectives and expert takes on what's shaping the world of events. Plus, subscribe to get blog updates sent to your inbox every 2 weeks and never miss an article from bizzabo.com/blog. Do more that matters with Bizzabo. We're back with Michael Barclay II to share how energy exchange can be maintained across events of longer durations. Gosh, you mentioned such a large library of experiences that Essence puts on. When you're talking about that energy, what if your event is spread across multiple hours or days? I mean, obviously, a little bit easier. Well, maybe it's a lot easier when you're just talking like, hour or two, and you're like cram all that into that one space. But you're talking multiple lengths of time, or what if you want to try to build and maintain that energy or over the course of a calendar year between events? I would love to hear your insights. How do you cultivate that energy over longer periods of time?
Well, all experiences need to be truly curated, and then at curation, you really do have to keep in mind your length of the event, the time of day it is, the location, all of the things and the creature comforts that need to come along with that. Prime example. We're in New Orleans in July. It's hot. It's humid. All of our experiences, for the most part, are inside in well-air-conditioned areas, because if we were to try to have an 8-hour festival day out in 100-degree weather with 100% humidity, there would be no energy. There would be no exchange. There would be nothing. There would be a lot of exhausted people who are wiped out from the heat and humidity. So you really do have to understand the setting that you're in and how long that you're going to be there. There's key components to that curation that make sure that energy flows. You got to have a tight run of show. In that run of show, you need to be clear on, this is a high energy moment. It's going to be a low energy moment. This is a moment where, we're just kind of a bridge to the next one. And there's other key components. You got to make sure, if this looks like a hosted event, you got a host that knows how to manage the energy in the room, that knows how to keep people up or knows how to bring them down when you need them to go down. Really have that kind of control over the audience. And then the other things too, like talent matches what energy that you're trying to create, kind of vibes, as the young people say, kind of vibes you're trying to set up. You have to do all of that. And then you also need to understand that there are natural ebbs and flows in energy when you're dealing with people. And so you have to plan for that as well. This is not going to be a high change, or you might need to give people a break. Again, if you're planning a festival, you might want to put some seating around so that people can have a seat so that they can recharge and get back whatever the next big boom that you have. So you have to think through the entire view of what the experience is and what did you want the consumers, the community, and the growers to experience and when, and then make sure that you create the environment once again that will allow. Well, no, and then to your point about kind of sustaining throughout the year, that's the beautiful part of amplification. When experiential, something that we, again, as an old man who's been doing this for 20 plus years, we didn't always have that. All we had was the event. But now we have the event. We have the content that comes out of the event. We got live streaming just talking about the event that's coming up. We've got all of the social media. We've got the user-generated content, the people that attended that are talking about it. So if you're looking at sustaining energy year over year, that's where your biggest tools are, is managing not only the content that comes out of the event, continually making sure that it's top of mind by utilizing those impressions. Again, it's the continuation of the energy exchange. So now you got all of that energy that's radiating outside of the event, but you can just funnel into the different channels to keep people excited and ready for the next year when you show back up.
You make such a great point there too. And I know we talked about at the top, you got a background in marketing. And I think that's so key because you're realizing, especially in today's, with all the channels we have at our disposal and all the mediums and the kinds of content we can churn out or create after the event or from the event, you're leveraging all those and you're able to keep that going. And really, that's where that marketing and strategy comes in, because it's not a one and done with, curtain closed and everything's done. No, it's not. That's just kicking off the next stage or the next phase of that energy exchange, which might, it looks a little different because it's maybe not in the throes of the event itself, but you're still, like you said, crafting that world, your world building. It's just now the landscape's changed a little bit.
Correct. But you have to see it pre-event. It's better if going into the experience, some of the secondary data, content, and things that you're gonna want to pull. That way, what to make sure you capture while you're on the grounds.
Yeah. Well, and super important too, just for everyone to keep that in mind. I mean, there's so much to be gotten from that content, and especially if it's generated by the people at the event, and then you're able to capitalize on it. It's funny, while you were talking, this reminds me, when my children were young, we took them with my parents to a day at Disney World, and they were like 6 and 4. And I knew that anytime we were going to have to walk quickly or even just walk between two rides, we'd better stop and get like a Sprite or or some kind of, just like, these kids just stood in line for an hour, got on a ride for maybe 10 minutes, and now we're walking the next thing. And as the parent, I was like, I got to have that plan in mind, or this day's going to go south really quick. And that's a super simplistic way to put it, but you really get into the granular, like minute by minute, I would imagine, then, as you're like looking at the programming for this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Our runner shows are definitely down to the minute. Even breaks, if we're doing intermissions or we're doing breaks, we have the breaks. And then again, what are you doing during that break? And again, if we have a brand partner where it makes sense, we'll do a refresh break. So you talk about getting inspired again. If we have a brand that is aligned with that, it's like, this is the perfect time to have that brand interaction and brand engagement, while we refresh the crowd or refresh the audience and allow them to rejuvenate so that we can keep going. So yeah, we're talking about long days in some of these experiences. And again, you have to be prepared and you have to plan for the natural ebbs and flows of energy. Yeah.
And I think we've had several guests around different aspects of events too on this podcast. We're talking about, you mentioned talent. Who's going to be on stage? Who's the talking head or heads? Is there a moderator? Is there an MC? Then what is the content? Is it death by PowerPoint, or are they doing it in an engaging way where it's like, no, it's after lunch and I'm still really alive and invigorated by what I'm seeing versus wanting to take a nap, right? But those choices seem to be super important if you're, as you mentioned, really focused on that energy exchange.
Yep, for sure. Absolutely.
I'm going to move that question you had put in here, which I think is great. Well, you talk about, with all the events that you put on, I mean, I hazard to question, what is next? What's next on the calendar for you, or what's next for your plans for Essence Ventures? What do you have on the radar?
Well, for Essence Ventures, we're going to continue to scale, of course, and serve all of our communities. So you have varied communities, which is why it's very important that we know who they are and what they need. But also, individually outside of Essence, I'm actually launching a creator platform called Crowded House that is poised to revolutionize the way that creators and experiential marketers reach their audience, and experiential brands and so forth reach their audiences. So working on that technology platform, really excited about that. Can't wait to launch. We're working diligently to get there. Well, it's going to work.
That sounds amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, congrats. That's got to be very exciting to be about to launch that. And by the time this podcast airs, people have a new platform to go try out. That'll be great.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be there.
That's awesome. Well, I have the easiest question of all for you now. Where can our listeners find and follow you online?
Well, on Instagram, Threads, and X, formerly known as Twitter, I am Barclay. So I am Barclay on all those platforms. And then on LinkedIn as well, as I am Barclay after all of the URL and all of that. So I am Barclay is my universal call sign on all social media.
Michael's skill up advice takes us back to the fundamentals.
I will give my pieces of advice that I tell any new employee, any of my myriad of mentees and proteges. When it comes to experiential, my number one goal is be on time. And it sounds very simple, and it definitely is related to showing up for work, of course, on time. But to me, it also expands beyond that into including staying on schedule with your production schedule, staying on schedule with your loading schedule, staying on schedule with your payments to your partners' schedule. Because experiential and creating events and all of this, the energy exchange that we're talking about, it's great, but it is a naturally high stakes, intense industry, with a lot of stress. And when you're behind schedule, when you're not on time, when you're behind the 8 ball, that just makes things even more stressful. It robs you of the opportunity to create an impeccable experience, to actually sit back and think about the little things, again, the nuances that actually make it the experience, the exchange that you want to your audiences and your communities and get on what you want. If you're running around trying to get back on schedule, all that goes out of the question, out of the window. So definitely, again, it sounds very simple. Just be on time. You got to be on time. Just roll at the right time, focus on the roll with your custom elements. Just make sure everything is staying on schedule. Because if you stay on schedule, you're ahead of the game, because it is getting increasingly difficult to do that, which is, I've been saying this for almost 20 years, and now I find it's more and more difficult now because of just the way the industry is, the way life is. But that's the main and the key thing for me, is to be on time.
Thanks again to Michael Barclay II for joining us on Event Experience, and thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love to hear it. Connect with us on social and subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Also, don't forget to share the show with your colleagues and friends. You can find transcripts of each episode and key takeaways on bizzabo.com/podcast. On behalf of the team, thank you. We'll gather again soon for a new episode of Event Experience.